This is a quick video to go with chapter 1 of my blog post on recycling an amplifier. So what we're hoping to do here is to take this old amplifier which has been taken apart and reuse some of the bits in it so they don't end up in Africa being picked apart by children on a rubbish dump. So inside here there's some pictures on my blog, which is Dorky Thorpy blogspot, and we had this rather large heatsink. This was coupled to these large Class A amplifier chips, and this was the big circuit board which went inside. Unfortunately this all got damaged, cracked when we moved house, so it's broken. So we're going to replace this with some bits off eBay, the circuit board part anyway, but we're going to reuse the power supply and the various connectors which come on the back, which are all quite handy, and also the case, you know, which is something at least, isn't it? Saves building a box. So the power supply is probably the most valuable bit to save, really, and this one's quite good. If you look on the back here, there are some various pins sticking out, and each one of those pins makes a different voltage. They're strange voltages. I've written them on the top here because they're not overly easy to remember, but we've got 17 volts, 27 volts, 43 volts and 70 volts, so quite an odd selection, but handy nonetheless, because there are plenty of amplifier boards which you can buy on eBay for not much money, which will run on some of those voltages. So the plan is to run 2 boards off this in this amp to drive 4 speakers. So I've got the front panel here, and which I've taken all the buttons off because there's a hellishly complicated circuit board on the back of there which I've got no idea how to repair or repurpose. So we've got this, I don't know, what would you call that? A small front panel here which you can buy on eBay for £3 or £4, and it's got a Bluetooth connection there, and you can also plug a 3.5mm input lead there, or USB. It'll play MP3 straight off a USB, so that's quite handy. So we've got that wired to some of the old RCA inputs and outputs. I think so. You can, if you want to use, your classic amplifier cables to connect up to this thing, you'll be able to do that. Also, because you have an output, you could also link another amplifier to it, or a subwoofer or something like this, if you have an RCA output. So I like to include that because I found it useful on this amp when it was up and running in the first place. So now this front panel unfortunately requires a 12 volt supply, but I've got an old laptop adapter here which gives 12 volts, so I'm going to use that and wire that up. And you've got to be a bit careful when you're looking inside one of these things. If you follow the line from the socket into the amplifier, and as you can see here, it's unplugged at the moment, but I'm still not going to touch it because it's not good to develop habits like that. This bit here, that's 240 volts, so you don't really want to touch that. Some of these pins at the back here go up to sort of 95 volts, so you wouldn't want to touch those either. And best avoided. As you can see, there's a ribbon cable coming out of the power adapter. Each one of these supplies slightly different voltages, and you have to check that with a multimeter. And then this other ribbon here, that's where I will connect the outputs from the amplifier boards when they're in the bottom of this case. So they will go into the speaker outputs, and then I'll have my clamps on the back here which I can put the speaker wires into and do the clamps up, and then hopefully I'll have a working amplifier. I don't expect it to sound quite as good as the old one, but there you go. So, oh, one other thing is I've saved some of the bits off the old circuit board, which is important actually. So these are some large capacitors. I think they might be useful for some sort of decoupling. I don't fully understand what that is, but apparently it's quite important. And these things here are, sorry, I'll just put that in the shade, it's a bit sunny there. So that there is a bridge rectifier. So what that does, you can see, can you see there? Can you? Yes, you can. So there's, see these little squiggly markings? So I presume you put your AC in there, which the power supply in the amplifier is an AC output, alternating current. So you put your AC in here, and then you take your DC current off here. So that's important, because if we don't keep those, then we won't be able to reuse our power supply. The board I'm buying is a TPA 3116, and that needs a supply of between 12 and 24 volts DC. So without our bridge rectifiers, we're not going to be able to do that from this power supply. And really, if we're not reusing that, then we're not reusing a lot at all, are we? So we ought to try and reuse that. 17 volts isn't an ideal voltage, but I've noticed that when I'm measuring the voltage off these thinner wires here, it's slightly lower, and the TPA amp that I'm hoping to use will run up to 26 volts, which is so close to 27, so it only needs to get slightly lower. Anyway, that's that. Chapter 2 coming soon, I bet.